When I first started this work, my first coach asked me, okay, so what do you know, she's sort of logging in, like getting to know me. She says, what do you do for yourself? And I said, well, I work out. I plan because I'm a stunt woman, right? So I'm an athlete, basically, and I'm having to take care of my body, and I have to take care of my energy. And she's going, no. What do you do for yourself? What do you do for fun? And I was like, and she said, you really don't know, do you? And I don't think I'm all that unusual. I think a lot of us, program ourselves to accomplish things or to be the person we were brought up to think we needed to be. Mm-hmm. We don't really know how we want to feel. How do we really want to feel? You know what we do, Shawn? Instead, we compromise. We decide, well, this is good enough, or this is where I should be, or I'm not going to get anywhere any further anyway. So, sort of this low-lying anxiety then sort of just exists in our lives. Just this kind of sadness. And we start taking Xanax and drinking too much wine or something, because we don't know how to go for our dreams. We don't know how to risk.
Yeah.
To risk. See, the amygdala says it's a risk. Mm-hmm. What if we just had a little mini stroke? And the only thing that happened was you couldn't think that thought anymore. Right. You couldn't think, what will people think? What if you just didn't ever think that anymore? What would you do? Oh my God. Yeah. Whatever it is, whatever's holding you back, what if you just couldn't think that thought anymore?
All right, in today's episode, I'm really excited to share with you somebody that this is the first time in the history of this podcast where I was a little bit in awe in the guest, I can't believe that I'm talking to this person. You never know where these types of things will lead you when you're creating things. And today in this episode is one of those days where it's like, wow, this is somebody that's really cool, especially for a big nerd like me who's really into Star Trek. And sci-fi in general, and she's also from some popular horror films, and we'll get into that introduction here in a minute. But on top of just kind of being super excited as a nerd, it's really great to have this conversation about fear and how it's something that we all have, we all experience, and it's not about quashing it, it's not about ignoring it, it's about learning how to, acknowledge it, and techniques to live with it so that, one, you have that edge if you are in physical harm, like if you're a stunt woman trying to do a stunt where you're falling down the stairs, or you're in a meeting and someone embarrasses you, right? And so fear doesn't know the difference between those, as we'll talk about in today's episode, but how you approach those fears, and so that it can help you drive your performance edge and not prevent you from getting into action, from getting in the game, from doing what you got to do to provide for yourself, to service your career, to help others, and drive your impact out in the world. So I'm really excited for this conversation. I hope you take a lot of notes. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And again, as a nerd, I'm really excited to have Patricia Tallman on today. And we'll get into her bio here in a minute. So enjoy the episode. We'll see you at the end with the little wrap up. Okay, guys? Hey, everyone. Welcome to The Meaningful Revolution, the podcast where we help you ignite your passions by hearing about other people nerding out about theirs, and hopefully inspire you to increase your ratio of meaningful work from busy work. So today, I'm really excited to have our guest, Patricia Tallman, on. Patricia's best known perhaps for her work in the 90s cult classic Night of the Living Dead as Barbara, the beleaguered heroine. Some may argue she's best known for her role as Lita Alexander on the Hugo Award-winning series Babylon 5, but either way, she's been swept into a career that features horror and science fiction projects. She's less recognizable, no less memorable as the horror hag in Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness, which I love that movie. Theater being her true love, Pat was delighted to be featured in the Los Angeles Sci-Fi Fest of Plays. So, she's been in tons of Star Trek things. Fans have made it a game to spot her in like 50 different appearances in Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, as well as the feature film Generations. She's got tons of zombie movies too, like Dead Air, and she also has a book called Pleasure Thresholds from Patricia Tallman's Babylon 5 memoirs, currently in its second printing, which is pretty cool. So out of all that, her favorite role is being the mother to her son Julian, and her recent work is helping people release their inner badass by leading epic quests to live their dreams, adventure, and creativity in Patricia Tallman's magical living. So with all that, Patricia, welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was quite an intro. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good to be here, Shawn.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about how to tame your fear dragon, which is, as a certified high performance coach, I'm constantly working with my clients on how to conquer fear. As a big nerd myself, as my audience may or may not know, I'm always like, Dungeons and Dragons is my thing, so slaying dragons is my lingo. I really love that. So first off, let's learn a little bit about you. So why is the topic of taming your fear dragon or facing fears really important for you?
Well, I think that doing what I've done in my life, being a stunt person and an actor, fear has been kind of a way of life, if you will, and I think there, first of all, there was this misnomer, this idea that to be a stunt person, or if you're in the movies, that you have no fear, that you're a natural show off, or, this is, and while, yes, you do have to have a certain personality type to want to get in front of people and be someone else, you're never without fear. And I think that's such an unfair thing to expect from anyone, from children to adults, to expect that they should be without fear. Fear is a part of us. Fear has a role in our lives. Fear is there for a purpose. And I really think now that having done the work, Shawn, that you and I both really enjoy, which is personal development and understanding our potential, how to live to our potential, and that we all have this inner potential we know we have, and we want to be able to reach for it. What gets in our way? What stops us? So because I'm a huge nerd, and I put these things kind of in terms that is fun for nerd types like ourselves to contemplate, to kind of mull over. And the idea of the fear dragon occurred to me because fear is like the little dragon Norbert when he first hatches out of the egg, and Hagrid's got him in his hut, and he sets Hagrid's beard on fire, and he's just cute. And that's like the worst thing he can do is, burp flames. That's about it. When they're small, when fear is small, we can kind of manage it. We can work with it. But fear can all of a sudden also roar up big, like Drogon in season 4 of Game of Thrones. Suddenly he's too massive and you can't control it. And then what do you do? So I love nerdy stuff like brain fun facts is what I call it. If once you understand how the human organism works, what this brain is designed to do, once you really understand it, it gives you a whole new lookout on life. It gives you so much more power. We are not the brain. We are not the body. We are so much more than that. This is an incredible instrument, the body, the brain. It's an incredible thing to get to run around in, but it's like a TARDIS. We are so much bigger on the inside. The TARDIS is a Doctor Who reference, for those of you who don't know. But the brain is programmed, and we start with a certain program when we're born, and then we add to it as we grow and develop it. We start adding to it as soon as the brain is ready to be added to, probably still in the womb, but we certainly do once we're born, and all the added stimuli start to come in. We start to form beliefs. We start to form thought patterns that will then inform our behavior, which then gets reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. But the first thing is that fear is probably the most primitive part of our brain. It's instilled in this little area called the amygdala, which is like the size of a walnut. It's the oldest part of our brain. It was formed billions of years ago when we were crawling out of the sludge on the planet. And that piece of the brain has never changed. We've developed these big, beautiful, gorgeous brains, and that amygdala is still in there, and it hasn't changed. It is designed to keep us alive. It's designed to enhance our survival. And the way it does that, it makes us hyper aware of our survival in every situation. So anything new, for example, any new thing clicks off a response in our primitive brain that makes us go, uh-oh, what's that? Uh-oh. And we're doing this all the time. That's important. That keeps us alive. That then the species can propagate because we're walking around and still alive. But it doesn't know the difference between something exciting and new and great and something terrifying, horrifying, and dangerous. Everything is an uh-oh. It's so simple. It doesn't have time to disseminate that information. It just makes us react. And how we start to react is our heart starts to pound a little bit faster, our breathing gets shallow, and then the amygdala starts to flood the brain case. Our brain is encased in fluid, as we all know, and it will flood that brain case full of stress hormones like cortisol. The stress hormones shut down the brain. Basically, it shuts down anything that we don't need in the moment to survive, and it shuts all the resources out into our limbs so that we can fight, flight, freeze, or fawn and survive this threat. Well, the threat might be you're going on a date with someone you're really excited about seeing, or you're having a job interview for the job of your dreams, or you're about to go on stage, or it can be a really good thing. But the amygdala doesn't distinguish. I call it clean fear and dirty fear. Clean fear is that fear that you feel when a truck starts barreling down the street out of control right towards you, or you walk into the room and at first glance the baby doesn't appear to be breathing, or your child is toddling over towards the pool and and you're like, you're running for that's a clean fear. That's survival fear. That's walking down a dark alley and hearing footsteps behind you. That's a clean fear. Then it's over one way or the other, right? Either, the baby's fine, or you get the baby out of the way, or the truck passes you, or you're dead, or whatever it is. One way the fear is over. But dirty fear is that fear when you're afraid to make a sales call. That fear when you're afraid to step out in a new way, and what will people say about me? What will people think if I do this and I fail? What if I'm afraid to raise my hand in class because the kids will make fun of me? Those are dirty fears. It happens, but are you going to die? Not really. Not really. They're not really going to perish. It's more of an emotional response. Clean fear, dirty fear. The amygdala doesn't distinguish. It's all fear. And so we find ourselves not stepping out into the world in the way we wish to pursue our dreams. What if? That might make it. This could, and that's all that amygdala out there doing this stuff. So what I call fear dragons is when the dragon is small, it's just still maybe a thrill. You feel like, I want to ask that person out and go on a date. I am going out on a date, and you're feeling the thrill, but it's manageable. You can manage it. The fear also employs what I call the faceless men. Did you watch Game of Thrones, Shawn?
Oh, of course I did. Yes.
Okay. Do you know the faceless men, the assassins?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Guild of Assassins, the most successful murderous organization in Westeros, right? They can be anybody. They could put on any face, and they can do whatever it is they were hired to do. Now, I kind of think fear does that. Fear has a way of putting on a face and pretending it's something else. It pretends it's just perfectionism. I don't want you to embarrass yourself, dear. So we're just not going to set this out. We're not going to send this one. We're not going to let anyone else see it because it's not perfect. And so then you never do the thing. Or it's judgment of others. Well, I'm, I am the judgment police, and I can see that this is, that this person is, oh dear, you judge other people constantly. Fear has a whole list of amazing faces that it will wear to distract you, to keep you in what I call the cave of complacency, to keep you safe in your cave where you'll never do anything, you won't risk anything, you won't die, but you won't really live either. It can look like boredom. It can look like laziness. It can be confusion. It can be procrastination, which is a great one. It could be people pleasing, taking care of everybody else, getting all up in their business, never really taking care of your own. It can be very practical. Well, if I spend the money on that mastermind, then that's how am I ever going to make that money back? Rather than thinking this will kick my butt and get me to another level, and I'm really going to invest in myself and my business. It can be criticism of yourself or others. Maybe you're really hard on yourself. Maybe you're just want to be you're more aloof, or you're disconnected, or you're judgmental. Again, that's a really common pairing, those three: aloof, disconnected, and judgmental. Envy and jealousy are faces of fear, or that I'll never have that. Who are they to have that? Why don't I have that? I'll never have that. So we get into this victim place. Fear loves to keep us in a victim mode so that we feel sorry for ourselves, but never do anything about it, because then we're staying safe in that cave of complacency or the comfort zone. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. It's, in fact, it creates, when we aren't going towards something that we have this desire, we think I really want to write this book, but oh my God, if somebody read it and they didn't like it, what would happen? What happens is you develop this low-lying anxiety that's always there, and you mitigate it with stuffing your feelings, right? I mean, that's when you eat too much. You're a couch potato. You get hyper busy in other people's business. You go to the gym, or you just stuff it by shopping. There's all kinds of stuffing mechanisms, but all of that really is fear.
Yeah.
It's the brain trying to keep you safe.
If you're enjoying listening to this episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast, there's another kind of conversation that you might really enjoy. So check out Dara here explaining a little bit about high-performance coaching.
I feel like in this particular moment where all of us need massive amounts of self-care, high-performance coaching is one of those huge gifts you could give to yourself for self-care. It's one of those things that just shapes your life in all these ways you never imagined. And I think I would just tell a friend that it's worth it. And get ready, because it's going to shake up your life. It almost feels like, you don't even realize as you're going along kind of these progressive steps, and all of a sudden, 12 sessions in, or however many sessions in, you're like, wait a minute, I'm planning and thinking about a life that is, drastically different in many ways. And so it's almost like this mental shaking up and getting all the crap out of your head. So I think it's an amazing experience, and it's incredibly energizing, and it's worth every penny.
Awesome. I love having deep conversations with folks, whether they're in my podcast or in my coaching practice. And so if you'd like to have your meaningful revolution started through a conversation and high performance, please stay tuned to the end of this episode for your invitation on how to get started. Yeah, 100%. And as you're like talking about this, I'm thinking about in the terms of like the high performance coaching I do. We always to like bridge that gap, not to get too ahead in like solving, but like there's a lot of power when you can tame those dragons, right? If you think of Daenerys as she trains the dragons in Game of Thrones, to continue with that, and how she presents power from that and confidence from facing what could be a very fearful thing. It's probably more applicable to Tyrion when he kind of like goes into if you, spoiler alert, but you guys should have watched this. But he goes into the cave and like makes friends and is able to like touch it, one of the dragons,
Yeah.
and Easteros, So like, and then there's that kind of like, okay, like face the fear. I don't have to have it control me, which is really
Exactly.
so powerful.
So think of like what you just said. Exactly, Shawn. I think that instead of putting on all this armor and getting all heavy with armor and stiff, because it's not flexible, not totally flexible, right? And you fight the dragon, and then now you have to be in a battle, and you have to be a warrior. It's more about having a cup of tea with your dragon. It's more like sitting down and going, "Hey, bud, what's going on? What is this? What's really happening here? Why did you go from Norbert to Drogon? What just happened?
Yeah.
What's going on?" And getting compassionate, because you're never going to be without fear. You shouldn't be without fear. That's weird. To be without fear is a problem, right? So we need to understand. So why am I afraid? What is that about? Why do I care so much about what other people think? Really? I mean, there's some really interesting ways that I'm sure you deal with your clients when you talk about how you've been socialized and how you were socialized and brought up in your family, in your community, in your church, in your school, whatever it is. And they teach you their moral compass, where you should be, where you should go. Don't think too much of yourself. Oh, who do you think you are? And women in my age range, it was always, being modest, putting everyone else first, taking care of everyone else's needs. Who are you to think that your needs are at all important? At all. When I first started this work, my first coach asked me, "Okay, so what do you she's sort of logging in, like getting to know me. She says, "What do you do for yourself?" And I said, "Well, I work out. I plan because I'm a stunt woman, right? So I'm an athlete basically, and I'm having to take care of my body, and I have to take care of my energy." And she's going, no. What do you do for yourself? What do you do for fun? And I was like, and she said, "You really don't know, do you?" And I don't think I'm all that unusual. I think a lot of us, program ourselves to accomplish things or to be the person we were brought up to think we needed to be. We don't really know how we want to feel. How do we really want to feel? You know what we do, Shawn? Instead, we compromise. We decide, well, this is good enough, or this is where I should be, or I'm not going to get anywhere any further anyway. So, sort of this low-lying anxiety then sort of just exists in our lives. Just this kind of sadness. And we start taking Xanax. Drinking too much wine or something, because we don't know how to go for our dreams. We don't know how to risk. See, the amygdala says it's a risk. What if we just had a little mini stroke, and the only thing that happened was you couldn't think that thought anymore. Right. You couldn't think, what will people think? What if you just didn't ever think that anymore? What would you do? Oh my God. Whatever it is, whatever's holding you back, what if you just couldn't think that thought anymore?
That's super powerful.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
I know. I know.
So, yeah, that is... It's gotten the hamster going in my head, So let's kind of maybe pull that thread a little bit. And so you talked about being a stunt woman. I know you've been in some horror films and stuff, so you've played around in being in theater or any type of performative arts, like that fear of public speaking or being out, so you've chosen a career in life where you have these dragons around you. So I'm curious, first off, like, how did you, like, decide one day that, you know what, I want to be a stunt woman? Like, did you wake up?
I know.
Was
what a dumb thing to do.
Maybe, I don't know. It sounds like, I think it sounds like a super fun thing if you can get over the fear of hurting yourself. Right? Like, the cautious part in my brain is like, I don't want to, like, fall out of a building and then really fall out of a building, you know? Like,
right.
I'm sure, and you're as safe as you possibly can be, but, you know, there's always that risk that you're talking about. So could you maybe tell us, like, how did you get started? How did you make that decision to be like, this is what I want in my life? Whether it's, maybe it was performing was before becoming a stuntwoman, but what's your journey getting to being around all this fear all the time? These fear-based things.
I started acting first. I had my first professional job when I was 15,
Oh, cool.
and then I never stopped, never looked back. I loved being somebody else. I loved storytelling, and I met stunt people on a movie I did called Night Riders by George Romero. For any of those horror fans out there, so. Night Rider spelled with a K-N-I. It was like basically a Renaissance fair with motorcycles. And Ed
cool.
Harris was the star of that. I met a bunch of
Fun.
stunt people. I really didn't even know that stunts was like a career, because this was back in the 1980, 1981. And that wasn't really discussed back then. And that was still in the days when they didn't give stunt people credit. They wanted the audience to believe that the movie stars were doing all of the action themselves. I mean, people don't go to the movies to watch stunt people. They go to the movies to watch the star.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to know that Pat Tallman was doubling Geena Davis in Long Kiss Goodnight. They don't want to know about that. They want to watch Geena Davis, right? So I watched these guys, and I was not interested ever in doing that kind of work, but it opened up my eyes to the industry. And then after that, I was living in New York City at the time, and while I was having a stage career, and I used to take period sort technique classes because I'm a huge nerd. So, and I met stunt people in that class. And one day, one of the coordinators came up and said, I need someone, a woman, 5'9" with red hair, to fall down some stairs for the soap opera to double this actress, and you'd be perfect. Would you do it? And I was like, sure. I had no idea. I'm like, okay. I'm working in the little girls department in Macy's. It's like I'm fine to try another way of making some money. And I did the job. I had a pretty good time. I mean, I knew I could do it. It was not a thing. And I worked out with the stunt coordinator to kind of practice before and get an idea of what it was he was going to ask me to do. And then they gave me a check, for like $1,200 for that day. Wow. And I fell down the stairs like 4 times or whatever it was. I know, wow. That was as much as I made in a month of working in the little girls department. So I kind of went, what? This is a job, So I kind of built up after that, just doing more and more stunt work. And it was weird. It was just something I was good at. Okay. I don't know how to explain it. I love telling stories through action. And to speak to your point about being afraid of hurting yourself, I didn't care if I hurt myself. Now, that's not to say I wasn't trying to be safe, because a stunt person has to get up and do it again. You don't just do a stunt once.
Right.
You could do it 12 times. I mean, you do it until you get it. So until they get the shot, until it's the right thing. There are one-off stunts where you're blowing up or crashing something, but often you're doing things more than once. So you definitely don't want to get hurt. Now, recently, I spent the past month flat on my back, because it turns out I've got some degenerating vertebrae in my back. And guess why? Because of stunt work. Yeah. The pain has been amazing. I'm completely bummed out, that my body is falling apart at the ripe old age of 65. So it's not a career I recommend, but there's no point in having any regrets. And it's taught me so much, including facing fear. So to be super honest, about 10 years ago, I had what I call a crash and burn in the emotional sense. I had like a breakdown. I just lost it. I've been working so hard and trying so hard to do to live life, to do all the things, to be a woman in a man's world, to what we all have a thing that was
Yeah.
part of what was hard for me, and um, and finally all the armor I call it that my to survive in the world, to survive in Hollywood, it just all broke me. It broke me, and I
Mm.
felt like the flayed man in
Oh.
Game of Thrones. I felt like
No.
my all the armor came off and took all my skin with it. It felt like I was just raw, and I
Right.
had no barriers left. So I went through this really incredible process of putting myself back together and starting this personal development journey just to understand, if I did my very best and it obviously wasn't
Mm-hmm.
enough. What else do you do? I
Yeah.
mean, how else do you do life? And that's what led me to start to understand fear and how the brain works. We can work with the brain, but you can't work against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
it's not going to get anywhere. But if you understand, oh, my brain is designed to physically, when these triggers happen, it will physically shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't be creative and problem solve because I'm breathing too fast and my heart's pounding. So
Yeah.
the first thing I teach my people is to what I call box breathe. It's a very common, this is not, I didn't invent this, but to slow down the amygdala, because the amygdala takes its cue from physical. Your body is so smart. The brain and the body have these clusters of neuroganglia. We've got 3 pounds of it in our brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also have a fist-sized cluster in your heart, and you have a mass of it in your gut. So when you say, I feel it in my gut, you really do. You
Right.
really are big. So that neural ganglia is in your body. So the body will take in all the clues out
Mm-hmm.
there and will know things before the brain's had a chance to process it. So by the time your brain goes, oh, the heart's beating fast and she's breathing shallow, my body's done that for its own reasons. It's already started it.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to control it. So you need another tool
Mm-hmm.
to control, to get yourself calmed down so you can think. And it's simply breathing. So you inhale on one side of the box, inhale, and remember not to stress yourself out. You're not going because that's just setting off the amygdala again,
Yeah.
right? So we
Right.
want
Right.
to gently inhale, and then you float on the breath on the top of the box. Just float, 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 gently, gently, gently. And when it feels right, then you start to slowly, slowly, slowly exhale down the other side of the box. And at the bottom of the box, push all the extra air out and then breathe in again. And you just keep that up. Slow, slow, slow. Just float on the breath, keep it light and easy so you're really calming down. And then slowly just control the exhale. We don't want to hyperventilate. And
Right.
then kind of push the last bit of the air out. And the box might look more like a trapezoid, or you but whatever, you get the idea. It's like
Mm-hmm.
4 steps. And
Yeah.
that calms down, and then it stops sending stress hormones into the brain case, and your brain can start to think, and you can solve the fucking problem you're trying to deal with, right? That's why you're breathing fast to begin with.
Right.
You can take a look. Is this clean fear? Is this dirty fear? Is my life in danger? No. Oh, I'm just afraid because the girl I'm meeting is around the corner. Okay, I can handle that.
It's
That I'm looking forward to. Right?
yeah.
Right? You can think a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really very interesting. Just simply that helps. And if you get a big fear dragon, I've got tools for that too. But just to control the first bits of it, breathing is so essential. And no one ever needs to know you're doing it. You can do it
Right.
so subtly.
Yep.
You can do it in the middle of a meeting. You can do it while you're waiting for the bus,
Yeah.
just practicing at any time so that it's right there for you when you need it. Just practice it. Just practice the box breathing. And it feels good anyway.
Yeah.
It's just nice and slow.
It's so amazing to me. Um, this like body mind connection, that you're getting. It's a feedback loop, and you can interject something,
Yeah.
to like give
Yes.
me the cues that I'm calm will calm you down. It's like a tuning
That's right.
fork, right? So like you get triggered, maybe you're at this like low rumbly like scale, and you want to be back to normal at maybe a brighter, happier scale. You hit the tuning fork, your body will then kind of start to switch and tune
That's
itself to
right.
that frequency. It's maybe not the best metaphor to come
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but
Well, if it makes sense to you, I think it's important that we put these things in terms that we all understand and you can work with. So that's
Yeah.
mine is the fear dragon. Yours is a tuning fork. Because it all works.
Yeah.
It's really helpful to notice your dragon when it's small
Hmm.
because you can work with it.
Yeah.
But when they start to get really big, it's like I can have full disclosure here. I can have a full on fear dragon instantly, Drogon, who's smushing me around money
Okay.
you know, I have money trauma, PTSD. So
Yeah.
it'll set me off, you know, like if I see an email from the IRS, I'm like, "Ah," you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Right, yeah. And without even opening it or anything, I can be completely overwhelmed with fear. And then you need to pull out a few more tools. That's when you start to get triggered
Hmm.
by something that really terrifies you.
Yeah.
um, then you need to pull out a few more tools, which I can help with too. I think it's really quickly. It's really you always have to start with your breath. Just start to breathe,
Hmm.
and then keep that breathing up through the whole process. You caught it. First of all, you need to congratulate yourself. You know, like Mel Robbins says, the high five. You have to
Yeah.
give yourself credit for noticing because the brain remembers that. So it's Mel also taught me this. The reticular activating system, your RAS,
Hmm.
notices you. It's the filter. It's that beautiful neural net over our
Yep.
brain that filters all the stimuli. Because if you didn't have it, you'd go completely insane. But it will filter what you focus on. So if you focus on saying, "Oh my gosh, that's so great. I caught that. I'm doing better. I caught that I'm in fear already." Then the RAS, your brain will start to help you notice it every time you start to move into fear before it gets too big. So you want to congratulate yourself. Okay, I caught it. Keep box breathing. And then I think it's really important to distance yourself from the fear. Get a little space, if you will,
Hmm.
from whatever it is that's caused you fear. And I call it a fear busting mantra. So if you can
Okay.
use anything you want, it should be positive. I like to use a piece of that serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I can say that so fast in my head or out loud that, you know, like a blur. And I'll say it as many times as I need while I'm breathing, just to get a little space, just
Hmm.
so that I can kind of have perspective. And then you want to introduce a better thought. And the better thought could be, I have been afraid before. I can handle this now. Uh, I I am well. I am safe. I'm loved. I'm peaceful. Just repeating it. Breathe in, breathe out. No fear, no doubt. Something like that. Something really easy
Hmm.
that you can again just kind of puts. It's a Patronus charm against the Dementor fears. It's a little bit. It just gives you some steadiness, and you can then start to think your way out. You can ask for help from a trusted advisor. You know, you can take some action steps then to get you out of the rest of it. But you need a few of those pieces. I think the breathing, the congratulations, the fear busting mantra, and to change your thought just slightly better. I like to always tell people to my members that affirmations are fantastic, but unless your brain can believe it, it's going to just be bullshit. So you need an affirmation that you can believe. So if you're trying to put out a blog post, but you're terrified to push publish, but you say to yourself, "I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning author," your brain's going to go bullshit.
Hmm.
But if you say, I've wanted to do this for so long and I'm ready. This is my time and I'm ready. Then you can push that button. Your brain can believe that. Yes, you are ready. Yes, it's scary, but we can do this. Just whatever makes you feel a little bit better. Change the trajectory just a little wee bit. If
Hmm.
you're heading towards, like the Titanic headed towards an iceberg, you only need to change your position a wee sliver at the very beginning. And by the time you reach that iceberg, you are somewhere else. You
Yeah.
are going off towards Tahiti. You're in a good place. So you
Yeah.
just need to shift the thought a little wee bit
Hmm.
to make a massive difference.
If you're enjoying listening to this episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast, there's another kind of conversation that you might really enjoy. So check out Dara here explaining a little bit about high performance coaching.
I feel like in this particular moment where all of us need massive amounts of self-care, high performance coaching is one of those huge gifts you could give to yourself for self-care. It's one of those things that just shapes your life in all these ways you never imagined. And I think I would just tell a friend that it's worth it. And get ready, because it's going to shake up your life. It almost feels like, you don't even realize as you're going along kind of these progressive steps, and all of a sudden, 12 sessions in or however many sessions in, you're like, wait a minute, I'm planning and thinking about a life that is, drastically different in many ways. And so it's almost like this mental shaking up and getting all the crap out of your head. So I think it's an amazing experience, and it's incredibly energizing, and it's worth every penny.
Awesome. I love having deep conversations with folks, whether they're in my podcast or in my coaching practice. And so if you'd like to have your meaningful revolution started through a conversation and high performance, please stay tuned to the end of this episode for your invitation on how to get started. And I love that idea that languaging matters. The thing that you're talking to yourself. There's a time in my career. So I come from software, right? So that was my big thing. My audience knows that I've worked for Walmart corporate, doing web stuff. I worked at Apple doing engineering stuff for a while before doing the coach stuff. But when I was at my first job after college, right? That was a huge shock, because you're open schedule, you have your projects, you plan your time, you put in effort, you get things done, it's not a thing. And then you go on to this like corporate thing where it's like, you need this done yesterday, and there's a bajillion things that pile on. I remember there was a time with talking about financial trauma, like I had a bunch of student loans, and I was in the point where like I was choosing like, what bills do I pay? Do I spend money on food this week? Do I fill up and put gas in my car? Just terrible. And I would just wake up exhausted and stressed, and I would say like, I hate my job, I hate my life. Like I hate my job, I hate my life. And you just get more and more like wound up and stressed with that bouncing around in your head. And so eventually like I read some self-help stuff, and I decided to journal. And so anytime I had that thing come up, I had like a red journal like this and would just write, I don't love my job yet. Just that little shift of, it's not that I hate where I'm at, I don't love where I'm at yet. I'm still in process. And instead of locking it in, like this is a bad situation, it's that avenue that things could change. And that
Right. You're still finding your way.
Still finding my, but I just don't love it yet. Like I'll figure out,
like that.
And that's the key belief. I can figure out how to love this situation, or I can switch the situation.
Into one you love.
Yeah. And it unlocked everything for me. I think that's kind of the same thing with, that switching, for positive thought. I always think about it like Indiana Jones. He like has the sand, he takes a statue, and sometimes you gotta outrun the bad, like the bad thoughts until you get someplace safe, right? But it's that brave act of, no, this doesn't serve me. I want this shiny thing. Let's get out of here,
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
the thing is, the other thing I think, Shawn, first of all, I love that that little shift that you had in your journaling. I think that's so important. And I hope that your listeners take that in. It's like, it's not about being perfect. It's just
No.
about being a little bit better. And I love this work for this reason, because my people are a lot. I have a lot of engineers in my membership,
Okay.
and it's all sorted Ravenclaw, right? They're all Ravenclaws, and and I love them so much, because they make me a better teacher, because they want steps, they want clarity.
Hmm.
But what they can do is want to do things perfectly. They can put on that perfectionist face of fear,
Hmm.
and my job is to remind them that this stuff works no matter how perfect or imperfect you are. It works, it just by you trying. You
Hmm.
can be a complete mess and it will still work.
Yep.
Believe me, because I have often been a complete mess and it still works, and then you have better times and you feel like, hey, I'm really on it. I'm on my good habits. I'm building, I'm saying the right thing and things are going well. And yay, good for you. And then it'll fall apart again. Trust me, because that's life and we're human and that's why we're here. But doesn't matter. As long as you try and as long as you pick yourself up and try again, it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's going to work.
Definitely. Yeah. I believe that wholeheartedly myself. So okay, and we could go into the engineering folks. I think that I have some theories on why there's perfectionism in that particular field. And I'll just say it right now, real quick. It's everything's changing so quickly, and there's always new
Yeah,
things you have to learn, and you get judged by your mistakes. It's not the
absolutely.
thing that you build that's great. It's like, oh, you goofed up that check-in, or and people
That's right.
take it
That's
so
right.
personally. And checking it is just like putting it in a safe, like saving a document for those people that aren't as technical. But um, yeah, and so you get in, you build up armor, you live in this thing of fear of like, if I mess up,
Oh,
then all my peers are gonna like rag on me or whatnot. And personally, like, I
the,
think having worked at Apple, like, you need to be collaborative. You can't
mhm.
actually work together when you have people you feel have like the daggers out chasing you around,
Well, you're talking to a woman who made her living in Hollywood, so I
oh
kind of
yeah,
know
I'm
about,
sure.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, criticism and public criticism and humility and all of these things that I really believe me. My heart is beating with you. I hear that. What I
Hmm.
love about engineers is they have. I love steps. I love breaking things down logically, and they help
Hmm.
me to do that better, because
Hmm.
they ask
Yeah.
questions.
Yep.
Wait a minute. How did you get from point A to point B? Oh, I kind of just jumped. I did.
Yeah.
Oh, there should be a process. You're right. And I don't know too many people right now who, other than those of us in our community, Shawn, but that
Hmm.
that are doing jobs that aren't high pressure. It's
Right.
ridiculous how inhumane so much work is, whether you're flipping burgers or whether you're working
Hmm.
at Apple. It's just not nice. It's really brutal out there. So we all kind of need what you have to offer, Shawn. What you're giving your clients. We need that kind of guidance. We need these tools, and we also need a huge dose of compassion for ourselves and for
Hmm.
those around us who are also struggling with this and maybe not as aware
Yeah.
as to how the brain works. They might not be into this topic so much. And one of the things that you were saying wanted me to, I don't know why, but to bring up the reticular activating system again. What we focus on, we create more of. We bring
Hmm.
more to us. So we have this brain, and you all can you do this right now. Let's say you wanted to buy a car. Think of a new car that you would want to buy.
Hmm.
For me, it'd be a red Honda CRV. Guess what I'm going to see everywhere I go now when I go outside, because I've been
Hmm.
thinking about a red Honda CRV. Yeah. Exactly right. It's like, don't think of a blue elephant, right? So then you start to see blue elephants everywhere. You see little pictures of them. It's
Yeah.
that's what the RAS is doing. It is filtering what you focused on to
Hmm.
bring it to you. It's like a puppy dog. Oh, you want more? I'll bring you more. That's just what
Right
the
on.
brain does. So if you find yourself obsessively struggling with something super negative, like a comment a coworker
Hmm.
said, or something that frightened, like a horror movie, even, you can't get it out of your head. You might need to employ a few tools to redirect the RAS, do some box breathing, and focus on a
Hmm.
better thought. I also want you to congratulate yourself for catching it. It's really important, really
Yeah.
important. Congratulate yourself for catching that you're on in a spinning story or you're in a negative place. Awesome. Just that. Just that could be life changing. So many people, do you realize probably 98% of the world doesn't do this?
Yeah.
They just stay in that negative place, and like I call it emotional masturbation. It just for some reason feels good in a dark way to be full of self-pity. But it's not gonna give you a life that feels awesome, that feels fulfilled.
Hmm.
I call it feeling magical. I want my life to feel magical.
Yeah. And what I love about that is the intentionality behind it, because I feel like when I've met people in my life or I've coached people that have been in that kind of negative spiral, like nine times out of
Mm,
10, it's just they don't know a different way. They don't know
sure.
that hey, I can feel magical, I
I can
can
do
feel
it.
positive. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, or like,
I
oh,
didn't.
there's tools, that
I
I
had
can
no
learn.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do you know you can cultivate joy? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until very, very recently. I read a book by a Google engineer, Chad Chad Tang Meng. I'll send you the link. I'll send you the
Okay.
link so you can
Yeah.
put it in some program notes for the
Aw-
fans. It's
Awesome.
called I think it's called Cultivating Joy, but it's all about how you can basically get your brain to really start pointing out what brings you joy. Again,
Hmm.
working with the brain wants to please you, so whatever you're focusing on, that's what it's you can tell what you're focusing on by the results in your life.
Yep.
You can pretty much tell. So yeah, and then it's just a matter of, what, you can ask for help, you can talk to people, you can look online. There's help
Hmm.
all kinds of places now that I Google and YouTube all the time,
Oh,
looking
yep.
for answers and looking for more teachers, when I'm stuck in a bad place, which happens. It's life.
Yeah.
It's just life.
It's
Yeah.
part of the fun of it. I think things would be so bland if you're always like winning on top. You master everything the first time you
Yeah.
try it. Like, we
Oh,
need challenge, we need difficulty, because I
yeah.
mean, ultimately, especially in the high performance coaching work, you define yourself by your challenges and how you approach them and how you like. Most people that are not happy with how they handle a situation, it's because they have this ideal in their head on, I'm going to be the hero, I'll stand up, and when that person yells at that barista, I will yell at him, hey, no, that's wrong, right? And then in
Hmm.
real life, you're like, you hold back and you're like, why do I feel bad right now? It's like, oh, I didn't live up to that hero, I like that
Yeah.
ideal, how I would want to be in the world, where I stick up for people um, that don't deserve, to be yelled at because their latte wasn't done, which is a really silly thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I know, but
um,
it happens.
it
Yeah.
does happen. Um, and the thing is like, not to beat yourself up when that happens, but it's to figure out like, why didn't I speak up? And it's like, oh, I have some trauma
Yeah.
when I was young with anger and stuff. So now I have to figure, okay, like, that's the good stuff. That's the stuff
Hmm.
when you figure out and tame that dragon, right? Now you have that dragon on your
Yeah.
side that you can employ it
That's right.
to
That's right. It's all
live in your
about
full
that. I
ideal.
think
Yeah.
exactly. About understanding your response, and I think there might be a little bit of grace in, if I were just
Mm.
to use your example. If you see someone being bullied, if you will, and you don't immediately jump to their defense. And maybe it's because you're not sure how to do that. You're not sure how
Mm-hmm.
to do it safely. You're
Yeah.
not sure how to do that that would really make a difference. You can always say something to the barista later that's supportive,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's that you might recognize that the person who is being the bully has had there's something they need a little compassion too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's complicated.
It is
Humans are
complicated.
complicated. So understanding that that was a lesson for you in that moment when you saw that and maybe you didn't react yet, it's a chance for you to kind of mull that over.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe come up with your own solution. What I'll do next time, or what did that, why did that happen? What can I take from that?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's a really good spot to start.
Yeah, or just figuring out
You
like
know,
what did I really want it like maybe you knew like
yeah,
deep down you wanted to do something but you hadn't like pushed it into the front of your brain to be like, "Oh, like this is something that's important for me to do now in the world." You know, this the self-discovery
mm-hmm,
part is a part of the magic, I think, of just being a human,
mm-hmm,
and being and like I like to kind of bounce off what you're saying too. I think it's an underlying value of curiosity because I think you're 100% correct
oh
that
yeah,
I'm curious about how I'm operating, how I'm curious how
yeah,
I'm showing up in the world. I'm curious about why are those people acting that way. I'm curious about like, you know, maybe there's a different way that you can intervene. It doesn't have to be like, "Hey, stop, don't do that." It could just be like you said, like comforting the barista in that example or just making sure that hey, like you do a great job. I don't know what that guy's, problem
yeah,
was. Like we're all I hope you don't have that impact your day and you know that you make an impact and just recognizing people. So, you know,
mm-hmm,
so I love that. So I'm curious, as you've done a lot of work on fear, this is something you definitely nerd out, and I could see it in how you're talking and in your face for those that are not watching us on YouTube. But I'm curious, did you have a couple of mentors or examples that helped you learn how to tame fear in your life, whether that's in performing
mm-hmm.
or stunt? It sounds like you didn't have a lot of fear with falling down the stairs. Was there maybe okay, so there's a couple of things here. Is there maybe a story that you have about having a big fear kind of go from, small dragon to, Drogo? How did you deal with it, either successfully or not? And then we'll get into how maybe influences or mentors that helped you figure through or figure out your system for dealing with fear. It's a
Okay, thank you.
lot,
Yeah,
so
that's a
sorry.
lot. So remind me if I miss this, if I skip a part. As a stunt person, I had a lot of examples in front of me of the guys I was working with, and I also just had my own ego. It's like I'm not going to be the one. I'm the only woman here, and I'm not going to be the one
Mm,
who buckles. I'm not going to be the one they're waiting on. I am not going to hold this up. You know what I mean? Just my
yeah.
ego. I think my own pride, and the pride of my sex to wanting to just
Mm-hmm.
to say no, we can do this too. So I pushed through a lot of fear. I didn't have these tools, and it did take a toll on me. It did. It was very, very hard, and I had my heart broken many times on sets as an actor, where I was bullied by a director or I was bullied by another actress. That happens too.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean it's weird that people, because they're insecure, even though I didn't really understand this then, with their insecure, they need to be they need to
mm-hmm.
bring you down to their size. I don't think they realize that's what they're doing. Because they're so small, they need to bring you down to their size or smaller.
Yeah.
They think that's what they think they're doing, is making you smaller. But it just makes you stronger because you have to kind of go, wow, oh my God. I've had people say terrible things to me to
Mm.
try to unnerve me before I was on camera to
Oh,
make me do a bad job.
geez.
I know. So you find ways um, to overcome anyway. But I think for myself, it left me. After a while, you can only take so many bullet hits, and
Mm-hmm.
you can only wear so much armor. and then it's going to crush you. It will crush you. It will either
Mm.
crush the joy out of your life. You stop
Yeah.
enjoying your work. You start getting really bitter. Um, in my case, it was just the emotion, just carrying the emotional um, luggage around, feeling burnt out, exhausted, and not loved. All of
Yeah.
that.
Oh man.
It got to be so much psychically that it did make me break. But the breaking was important, and I'm grateful for it now. I was not grateful in the moment, but I'm
Nope.
grateful for it now. I did see what kept me going was seeing other people and how they handled it and making my own decisions. And I'd see other stunt women. I saw
Mm.
how hard they worked. I saw that they had to do 150% for every job that a man did, and not complain. I saw women. I walked around on a broken foot for a whole day without complaining. You
Wow.
just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just carry on. Um, and that was my example. It's like, just don't let them see your vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to do that. Then though, let's see, it's such a good question. It's a nuanced question, Shawn, because I must have been picking it up along the way as well. Because when I did finally hit bottom, I I I had places to go where I where people who accepted me right where I was at, whether I was crying the whole time or just a big mess or whatever. Then nobody judged me, and I could
Mm-hmm.
just. And then there was some guidance, and you you look for those places. 12-step programs are great for that. And you don't have to be an addict
Mm-hmm.
to go to a 12-step program. I went to one called Al Anon that was very helpful for people who grew up around alcoholism or addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And it just teaches sort of an emotional maturity, how to understand yourself, how to understand others, how to look at it. And I did that for quite a while. They just kind of let me muddle through until I found some footing. I
Mm-hmm.
think therapy is really important. Therapy is great. And um, and then I found coaching. And what I love about coaching, and I've had several really important coaches in my life, including Martha Beck, that the a coach, therapists it gets you to understand maybe where stuff has come from growing up and the traumas you
Mm-hmm.
faced, and then helping you to release that. Now that you understand it, sometimes just looking at the darkness in the closet that you don't want to look at, so just shining a little light on it helps it to dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's not such a big monster anywhere. It's just a little spider. I can manage that, you know. But the bigger things, the behaviors and the old habits, that comes with coaching. Coaching gives you the
Mm-hmm.
tools. They're practical tools. You don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of every childhood memory. You can actually just say, I have this response when these things happen and I want to change it.
Yeah.
I want to I have this
Ooh.
goal. I have no idea how to get over my limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how to get over that. And that's what coaching does. Gives you the tools to keep on keeping on. And I'm so grateful,
I
so grateful.
I love that insight. I hope everyone was like hooked onto that. But the idea, and I talk a lot about like the difference between therapy and coaching, just because a lot of
Oh
times
yeah.
people are just like, "What's the difference?" And I think you're
Oh
spot on that. Therapy is when you have a trauma that's holding you back from your past. I think coaching is really future oriented. I think that's the key insight that I want to be different. I want to change. And it's different from therapy. And a lot of times as a coach, if something keeps coming up, I'm like, hey, like, I don't have the skills to really address that. Like, you really need to talk to a professional, like my wife. My wife's the therapist. So, which is pretty fun.
perfect.
But,
You're a good team.
yeah, I don't think, yeah, she gets weird when I'm like, hey, you should talk to her. But, conflict of interest stuff for professionally. But uh, ultimately, though, that coach can help you build the steps to like when I am in this situation, I don't want the fear to control me, and they'll help brainstorm the tool with tools and digging into your psychology and like, okay, again, what can we find that's positive to replace that negative belief or to shift your language around it? Or, um, we have, I have some breathing exercises that I also teach my clients. But box breathing, I
So
think, is
important.
a very, very, like we've talked about it a bunch. And I just want to highlight how really important it is to get back into your body sometimes
Hmm.
with that. But yeah,
Can you
so
can you explain what getting back into your body means to you?
that's a
I think
really
that's
good
important.
question. Yeah, so especially if like, so I'm an introvert and a nerd, and so a lot of times I could spend a lot of time in my head, which is just thinking about and processing things around me. And
Hmm.
when it's really intense, it just looks like I'm kind of like drooling, like not saying anything, not really reactive. Um, so people can kind of see that something's going, like you're having thoughts, but you're not really kind of emoting, or you're not really feeling what's going on, like you were talking about your heartbeat, your breath rate, where you're tense in your body, where you're not tense in your body. Not in a sense, like here I feel like I'm in a state of flow, we're in a conversation, there's back and forth. It's presence, right? That's another maybe word for being in your body. You're very
Hmm.
present in the moment, not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past, not, thinking about, oh, I got to take the dog out or what I'm going to eat tonight. But it's like, oh, I'm here with this human or this group of humans or with this task. And all your focus and energy is able to flow into it versus getting like stopped, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to talk with
Hmm.
someone, but I'm afraid that if I say something, they're going to judge me, or I'm going to say the wrong thing, or offend them, or like you're kind of stopping yourself in your
Hmm.
brain. Your brain is catching you the action instead of your body expressing it. Maybe. What does it mean to
Hmm.
you?
Similar. For me, it's also, yeah, the breathing thing is imperative, and I lead a meditation in my group every Monday, and I really take you through the body. I really think it's
Mm,
important to also, just like you were saying, it's important to, let's check in, let's see what the body's saying.
mhm,
If you can get really familiar with your body, you will notice sooner when it's trying to tell you something.
yep.
And like I said, the body knows faster than the brain. The body's got all these other sensory things going on. Not,
Mhm,
we can feel vibe. We can feel energy from each other and from
mhm,
everything, because everything's energy. So there's all kinds of information coming in. So if you just go in and check. I also like to ground. I have a way of grounding and meditation with everybody, that really connects you with the planet again and Mother Earth, and we're made of that stuff, so it's important to connect to that, and then to spiritually, if you will, connect to the bigger part of
mhm.
yourself, that bigger on the inside thing, just to start to open up all your awareness. And I feel like most of it comes in through the body.
Yep.
You'll have a sense in your body. You've got a sense of dread in your gut, or your heart just opens with joy, or with love. You feel a tingling, or you have a knowing, but you can feel it energetically.
Mhm.
So, and when you start to really pay attention to it, it's really amazing.
It
All the information that's in there.
all yeah, all the information you don't realize you're picking up by seeing
Yeah,
somebody, their body language, their tone of voice, the
yeah,
everything, like that
that's right.
all is really rich. And like this person is friendly, this person is not friendly, and
Or
like
they're trying to be friendly, and your warning system's going, and you
mm,
don't know why, really,
yep.
but there's something, I just don't.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
every
Or
time
the other
I've
way.
trusted my gut with those feelings, it's worked out. And every time
See?
I've felt that weirdness, and I'm like, ah, it's probably just me. Like it's never just me. It's usually like, oh, like danger, danger, or
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Or just not a great alignment. Even just that
yeah,
is good to know. Yeah, yeah. I think that's really good, Shawn. It's good to remind folks to be in there, to check in.
yeah.
Where am I right now? What are my thoughts? Where am I?
Hmm. How am I
Hmm.
energetically? Like
Yeah,
all the different areas that you're talking about. How do I feel connected to my community or to the higher power
yeah.
or my religion or like whatever that is for you?
Whatever.
Like it's
That's it.
super important to have some connection outside of yourself. and that
I don't
feeling.
think it matters to put a name on it. It's
Yeah.
whatever works for you and whatever
Yeah.
how you were raised. But to know that you are so much more
Mm-hmm.
than your computer brain. Your thoughts are not you. Even your
Right.
feelings aren't really you. I mean, this is all where this is part of the process, but it's not all of who we are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, connecting to all of that opens you up to more information, more resources,
Mm-hmm.
more help when you need it. Like you just get your that higher wisdom to kick in. Sometimes you have to shut your brain up so you can listen to those quiet intuitions
Yeah.
come in.
100%. So I
Mm.
totally love that. Okay. So we're kind of at the end of the hour. Let's wrap
Mm.
up real quick. So, what I love to ask, love these three questions. So the first one is, if someone were to get started on taming their fear dragon, what would be the first 1 to 3 habits a beginner would do? And maybe we've already referenced some because maybe it's I'll let
Sure.
you answer that just as it is.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things that you can do, and we have talked about them, but why not reiterate them? First thing
Mm-hmm.
is you start to notice that you're in fear. Start your breathing. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
your favorite breathing technique is. I like the box breathing because it keeps you from hyperventilating and it's very gentle. And we don't want to stimulate the amygdala into fight or flight. So let's calm it down by gently box breathing. And then to congratulate yourself that you've caught yourself in this situation. Ah, I recognize this. I'm in fear or something's going on and I'm going to check it out. So high five yourself because you want your brain to help you to remember to do this. And by congratulating yourself, you are reinforcing that for your RAS. Then you say some kind of a quick mantra, and it could be a piece of a poem.
Mm-hmm.
It can just be something, a few words you put together, like breathe in, breathe out, no fear nor doubt. One of my friends likes infinitely loved, always safe, no mistakes. I like the grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, that piece. So
Mm-hmm.
you find whatever you can say and you just say it automatically. And it just gives you a little bit of perspective on that fear. You start to disconnect from it. It might be still present, but now you know where you're at. And now your brain is calming down. So
Mm-hmm.
then you can do a few things. You can create a new thought that feels a little bit better. If you're not ready to do that yet, I think our brains also love ritual and symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how we've set up society. We love ritual, we love symbolism. So symbolically imagining yourself releasing the fear, like see the fear as a little ball of like a dementor, like black smoke, and just see it then going poof, just dissipating. It might not disappear right away, but it's getting less, and you can manage that. Or imagine your dragon huge, and now he's getting little, and cuter and cuter and cuter. Just using your superpower, that mutant power you have of your imagination, either seeing it dissipate or seeing your dragon get to a good size where it can have a conversation with you. What's going on, honey? What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Being that self-compassion. If you're having a hard time with self-compassion for yourself, feel it for your younger self. Feel it for that little person that first felt that fear, who first was hurt by people saying mean things. To see yourself smaller, see that smaller dragon, feel some compassion for them, and then replace it with a better thought and release that fear. I just think it really helps remember, you've got this amazing brain.
Yeah.
Might as well use this tool for good. Use it for good. Control it. It needs you to control it, just like we have to control our computers and our programming systems.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do. It's a weird thing because it's like I'm not my brain, but I'm taking with my brain. You can get into that weird thing, but
Yeah.
it really, it is something that needs your guidance. Your brain
Mm-hmm.
needs your guidance, or it will just. It's a great tool. It's a terrible master.
Yeah.
Don't let your
I
brain be
love
your
that.
master.
I love that phrase.
Mm.
Just to piggyback on that with another habit that I really love to teach my clients, when you have a negative reoccurring thought, or like for me it comes up in like situations like, have you ever had that thing when like you embarrass yourself in second grade with like you like spilled water on your pants and everyone like made fun of you, and like you're just going about
Oh.
your life and it pops in your head and you're like, why this doesn't serve me right now,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
why I'm a 40-year-old man, like why is this popping in my head? Like, what I like to do is I like to like do the abstraction ritual where I'll picture the scene in my head as it's like a movie. I'll freeze the scene like it's a picture. I'll imagine pulling the picture from my brain, crumpling it up, and just tossing it on the ground. And I like
Okay.
to call it like leaving around emotional turds. So you kind of like expel it, and like there's invisible notes all around my neighborhood of just
Scared.
like, I don't need this.
Poof.
Don't
Yeah.
need this.
Don't need it. Don't need
So
it anymore.
I'll offer that up to folks as
Yeah.
another really great example, just to hop on, what you were talking about earlier. Um, so to yeah, symbolically release that fear. So this is
Yeah.
my one of my favorite questions on the podcast is, if you're someone that has a pretty good handle on managing fear in their life, so maybe you're not a beginner, but maybe you're more advanced and you want to really, get
Mhm.
control of your mind. You
Mhm.
really want to and deepen your skill level and being able to course correct or coexist with the fear, maybe is a better term. What would an mediary this word is tripping me up. Would be like
An
the
intermediate student of
yes,
fear.
thank you so much for bailing me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think here's some I call them putting on your big girl panties. So for all of us, so, I think we need to embrace that we're emotional beings and emotions need to move. It
Mm.
takes it might take more guts to be this vulnerable. So let's say you are a little more experienced and you're willing to be more courageous when it comes to mitigating that fear. You may need to cry. I know it's a shock. You might need to let some emotion out. Emotions are meant to move, and crying is not being weak. It's biology. It's releasing some hormones that need to move out of
Mm-hmm.
you. Will clear your mind. Let it happen. So it might, like I said, you might not want to do that in the office. You might need to go take a break, but you might need to let some emotions out. It's okay. Keep breathing. I also think it's really powerful to write it out, like Shawn was talking
Mm-hmm.
about journaling. Journaling, there is an alchemical, magical connection that happens when you connect to from your brain to your heart and have it come out of your writing hand and actually write, not type, write it out. Then I think it's important to talk to a trusted advisor, whether you have a coach like Shawn or you have a spiritual advisor, but it's someone who understands this work. So talking to a trusted advisor is really important. And here's a little brain fun fact for you. We'll close with this one. You cannot be in fear and grateful at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So when you're really terrified and you got to breathe. The breathing is paramount. That's first. If you try to think of some things that you can be grateful for. You're grateful for the health of a family member. You're grateful for being able to take a poop that morning. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You start to be grateful for you have a roof over your head, or you're not starving to death yet. I mean, whatever it is, start to stay in gratitude. I mentioned earlier that I went through this thing. I've been going through this thing with my back and the fear. There's a lot of fear around this. I've always lived so hard in my body. I'm a stunt woman. I'm an athlete. This is my thing. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to be flat on my back. I can't carry anything. I can't. What? Me? What?
Mm-hmm.
That just, I'm a black belt kickboxer. What do you mean?
Yeah.
So I was laying there in excruciating pain and I can't take anything for it more than Advil. Then I thought, I just started to go well, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fear wasn't helping. The fear that was
Right.
mounting up around it on top of the pain wasn't helping. And if I am not kidding. The hours went by because I couldn't sleep because of the pain. And I kept staying in gratitude, just kept thinking of things and crying.
Mhm.
And it was kind of amazing. It was kind of amazing. It's changed something in me. The whole experience changed something in me. The pain became distant. My fear took a seat with me. We all sat there, pain, fear, and me. We were all sitting there together for hours and hours and hours, just kind of hanging out, going, "Well, this is fucked," and now what?
Right.
But it really, if you're desperate, if you're really scared, you must try this trick. Start to go into gratitude and see what happens for you, and stick with it. You'll notice that you can't be terrified and grateful at the same time. It's really interesting.
That is so powerful and such a great insight, and I'm very thankful that you were able to to land on that one. I think it's just so helpful. Again, I got the hamster going like a million. I need to be here. I need to be here. Okay. But yeah, hopefully you took a note on that, guys. Think about it. I'll probably have some more in the show notes a little bit as I process that thing. But I love the idea that you can replace that fear with gratefulness, with honoring. We call it honoring the struggle in high performance. And it's that idea of being grateful that you have the opportunity, as someone that's put their body probably through hell through their passion for their profession, right? I'm thinking like, this is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about my dad and his body. He was a contractor, construction worker. He's had walls fall on him and stuff. Not for stunts, because just on the job, And so he's not moving around as nimbly as he was when I was growing up. Still doing great, but he gave his body to his craft. I think there's something very beautiful about that, or like Krishnikov, right? The ballet guy.
Yeah.
I've never seen his feet, man, brutal, but he did it for his craft. So I want to honor that for you just in that story, because that kept bouncing around my head. I'm like, should I say it or should I not? And let's be here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One more quick question before we wrap up. What habit or habits keep you on purpose or mission every day, every week, or every month? Whether that's in your work and helping people overcome their fear. I know you we'll get to your Quest group. So I have the note here, what that's really called, but and just kind of where to find it. But
habits are so important. Habits, and remember, you can change your habits too. I see so many people who are just sort of resigned. Well, this is what I do. No, that's bullshit. It's what you do now. You can change it if you want to. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. I think some of the good habits that I've now got to relearn are having to do with my physical self. Like, how do I take care of my body? I got to relearn that now. So that's going to be interesting. But building the habit of breathing, of just practicing that, like when you're waiting in line is a good time, or waiting on hold. Finding time to meditate, even if it's just a few minutes, because you're so busy, your brain is so busy. You must learn to let your brain settle for a little while, so you can get these downloads from your higher self, so you can get this information, so you can get in the flow, so you can take advantage of the synchronicities that the universe is trying to put out there for you. It's like I said, the RAS, your brain is trying to filter for you, and if you guide it in that way, it's just going to change everything. If you can guide it towards what you want rather than what you don't want. Worrying is praying for what you don't want. So let's stop that, shall we? That's the focus on what we want. And taking care of your body. So taking care of your mind with the meditation, taking care of your soul with your connecting in the meditation, and then taking care of your body, drinking better, more water, whatever it is you need to do to create those habits. That's the building blocks of everything. And then you can, follow what Shawn's saying and what other teachers are telling you, but if your body's falling apart, you got nothing. So good luck. We gotta take care of our bodies.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So, okay. Patricia, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It has been such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more, hearing about the important discoveries you've made about taming and fighting your fear dragons. Before we sign off, what's the best way for people to follow up with you? Do you want to talk about your Quest group for nerds? I'm totally butchering what it really is.
Oh, it's just Quest Retreats. You're very close.
Okay.
Quest Retreats.
Okay.
So what that is I lead adventures for nerds like me. And, before the pandemic, I was going for a trip every year. This year in December, we're going to Africa. And so if you follow me on Instagram, you can message me there. Instagram, it's just patriciatallman.rocks.
Yeah.
And it says I like rocks and crystals. I don't know why I did that, but I did that. So there you go. It's patriciatallman.rocks.
I thought it was like
Instagram.
rocks. Like, cool.
And I have a community on Circle and Kajabi. So you can find that all on my Instagram and find links there.
Okay, and I'll have your Instagram and social linked below.
That's perfect.
In the show notes. So.
Yeah, everything's in the link in the bio, that link in bio thing. Yeah.
Cool. And make sure you click on that. Make sure you're following Patricia if you're not already. This has been very, very, again, exciting for you to be on the show today. Thank you so
Shawn.
much. And hope
Thank you so much.
hear from you.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most amazing things about this week's episode is Patricia's ability to kind of dig into a little bit of how the brain works, especially when dealing with fear. And fear, again, is something that, as a certified high performance coach, I'm constantly having conversations with clients on what are they fearing, what are they avoiding because of that fear, and really helping them shift into finding their way forward, right? And a lot of times, I talk about this in my coaching practice a lot, there are 3 different types of fear. There is process fear, that the thing that you have to do is going to be painful just by the act of doing it. So if you put the example of training for a marathon, the act of training is going to suck, right? And that's demotivating, so you don't try. Second type of fear is outcome pain. And so people, basically this is like the grass is greener on the other side fear, that if in that running example I do, finish that marathon, I'm not going to feel like it really helped me, or I don't see what's the point. And so you are afraid that the outcome isn't going to be the way that you want it, right? And the third type of fear is loss fear, right? So in the marathon training example again, that you'll have to give up eating your favorite foods because you need to, basically feed your body right as an athlete. So in each of these cases, you can focus on what you gain from, each experience or each type of fear. And that usually gets people over the hump, right? And I think when Patricia was talking about, training your brain to look past negative things or habits or things and to focus on the things that you want out of life, that's another way to say focus on what you gain, right? Because I think if you're constantly training your brain to think about how is this task, how is this relationship, how is this career helping me advance my life, the life of my family, the life the legacy and impact that I want, that is where, one, we find a lot of meaning in, and two, that's a recipe to be able to be happy as we go through life and have life's ups and downs. So I hope you took a lot of notes. I know I did. I'm just taking a look at them real quick too, see if I missed anything big. But yeah, it's a fantastic episode again. Make sure you go and check the links in the show notes, because you'll find how to contact Patricia. She's got some charities that she is a part of and likes to promote, which is pretty amazing. So take a look at all that in the show notes on ShawnButner.com or wherever you if you watch this on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, all the notes will be there. So, all right, folks, until our next episode, this is Shawn Butner signing off. Oh, real quick, this is the end of season 3. So I'm going to do a couple of process changes, do a little bit of a post-mortem on how I think things went, probably do an interim episode, and then we'll get into season 4 of the Meaningful Revolution podcast. We wrap up this episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast. I want to extend an invitation for you to start your meaningful revolution through a high-performance conversation. So if you go to ShawnButner.com/coaching, you can qualify for a 1-hour strategy session with me as long as I have time. And we will deep dive and have a conversation like the one you just heard. So if you like this podcast and what you just listened to, then I know you're going to love our one-on-one strategy session, because we'll go in and we'll deep dive into your life through the high-performance lens, this science-based process that people love, and we'll find some breakthroughs for you on how you can live a little bit more meaningful, or feeling a little bit more fulfilled, or feeling a little bit more connected to those around you. So, but don't take my word for it. Here's more of Dara sharing their story of how they were before and after certified high-performance coaching. And again, if you're interested in qualifying for a free 1-hour strategy session, go to ShawnButner.com/coaching, link below wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. So over to Dara.
Before coaching, I was just sort of like a machine, just going along and doing the thing. And like, there were decisions that I must have made at different points along the way that seemed like small decisions, but they slowly added up to this life that didn't make sense to me anymore. And it just came crashing down, and I took a day off of work and was like, I can't do this. Like, this doesn't make sense to me, what I do in my daily life, how I'm living my life, how I'm not taking care of my body, and socially, like, just the whole picture was just kind of it just all felt wrong. And then I signed up to do the coaching, and I think it gave me this space to pause and reflect in a way that daily life doesn't always give us the structure to do that. And because you're paying money, you're making this investment, right? And so you're committing to it in a way that if I say, I'm going to journal every day about my hopes and dreams, it's not the same as sitting down with someone, having somebody hold you accountable and showing up and doing the work. So before, just sort of this machine moving along this path that was sort of unconsciously set. And then after, I've just shifted simple things like how I feed myself. And like just little things that I'm suddenly aware of, and who I bring into my life, and how I spend my time and energy. And it just feels so much more in alignment with my values and my goals and my community and family's values and goals. So huge change.